At 16 years old, most people are worried about passing their driving test. Barry Minkow was running a company worth $100 million. At 21, he rang the opening bell on the New York Stock Exchange. At 23, he was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. He had built an entire empire, the investors, the auditors, the bankers, the Wall Street analysts, on a foundation of nothing. And for nearly 5 years, nobody caught him. This is how a teenager almost got away with one of the largest frauds in American history. Reseda, California. 1982. Barry Minkow is 16 years old and obsessed with two things: money and respect. He starts a carpet cleaning business out of his parents' garage. He calls it ZZZZ Best, the 4 Z's, because he wants to be the best in the phone book, the last listing that comes before the yellow pages end. It's not glamorous. It's a kid with a van and a steam cleaner, going door to door in the San Fernando Valley. But Minkow is not a normal kid. He is magnetic. Charismatic. He can walk into a room full of adults and have them hanging on every word within minutes. He talks fast. He thinks fast. He makes people feel like they're in the presence of someone extraordinary, someone going somewhere. He is also, very quickly, spending more money than the business makes. The neighborhood kids he hires steal from him. His equipment breaks down. The margins on carpet cleaning are brutal. By the time he's 17, he's drowning in debt. So he does what any reasonable teenager with a gift for persuasion would do. He starts writing bad checks and stealing credit card numbers from his own customers. This is year 1. By year 5, he will have stolen and fabricated over $100 million. The original crimes were small. Desperate. A bounced check here. A forged credit card there. But each one required a cover-up, and each cover-up required a bigger lie. Minkow's genius, and it was a dark kind of genius, was understanding that the solution to every financial problem was not to earn more money, but to convince someone to lend you more money to cover the hole. He discovered, early on, that banks and investors do not actually verify most of what you tell them. They look at paperwork. They check the boxes. They meet you in person and assess whether you seem like a real businessman. Minkow seemed like a real businessman. By his late teens, he had incorporated ZZZZ Best as a proper company. He hired a PR firm. He gave interviews to local newspapers about his success as a young entrepreneur. He bought expensive suits. He drove a Ferrari leased, obviously, on credit he couldn't afford. And then he invented a second business. Alongside the carpet cleaning operation, which was real, just perpetually hemorrhaging money, Minkow began claiming that ZZZZ Best had a massive, lucrative second revenue stream: large-scale insurance restoration work. When a building floods or burns, the insurance company pays for professional restoration. It's a high-volume, high-margin business. And it was completely believable that a successful cleaning and restoration company would have contracts worth millions. The problem was, ZZZZ Best had no such contracts. Minkow and a small circle of accomplices simply made them up. They created fake documents. Fake contracts with fake insurance companies and fake building managers. They invented job sites. They fabricated invoices, completion certificates, financial statements. When auditors or due diligence investigators asked to physically inspect a job site, because they sometimes did, Minkow would find a building that was genuinely under some form of renovation, lease space in it for the day, have his team put up ZZZZ Best signage, move in equipment, and give a convincing tour. Then they'd pack up and disappear before anyone could come back for a second look. In 1986, Barry Minkow took ZZZZ Best public on the stock market. He was 20 years old. The IPO raised $15 million. The stock soared. At its peak, ZZZZ Best had a market capitalization of over $200 million. Magazine profiles called him the boy wonder of Wall Street. He was invited to speak at schools, churches, and business conferences. He talked about hard work, the American dream, believing in yourself. None of it was real. The auditors from the firm Ernst & Whinney, one of the largest accounting firms in the world, conducted full audits of ZZZZ Best. They found nothing wrong. Prestigious Wall Street investment banks backed the company. A major acquisition was in the works. ZZZZ Best was about to buy KeyServe, a legitimate carpet cleaning company, for $40 million. If that deal had gone through, Minkow would have finally owned a real business worth real money. He almost made it. What brought him down was a single credit card dispute from 1986. A woman named Dodie Bryant had caught an unauthorized $72.36 charge on her credit card. She filed a complaint. A local newspaper reporter named Daniel Axt picked up the story and started digging. He found irregularities. He found that many of ZZZZ Best's claimed job sites didn't match any insurance records. He wrote a small article. It was enough. Investors and auditors started asking harder questions. The weight of years of fabricated documents began to buckle. In May 1987, the KeyServe acquisition collapsed. In June, a major creditor demanded immediate repayment. The stock went into freefall. By July, ZZZZ Best had filed for bankruptcy. And the investigators moved in. What they found inside ZZZZ Best was staggering. Of the $50 million in revenue ZZZZ Best claimed to have generated in 1986, approximately $48 million was entirely fabricated. The company had, at its core, almost no real business at all. It was a machine designed entirely to generate fake paperwork to support the raising of real money from real investors. The FBI investigation revealed over 20,000 fraudulent transactions. At trial, 29 witnesses testified against Minkow. He was convicted on 57 counts of racketeering, fraud, and money laundering. The judge sentenced him to 25 years in federal prison and ordered him to pay $26 million in restitution. Barry Minkow was 23 years old. Here's where the story gets strange. He served about 7 years and was released in 1995. He became a pastor. Not metaphorically. He was ordained. He led a congregation in San Diego. He wrote books about redemption. He gave talks about his fraud to business school classes. He became a fraud investigator, actually helping the FBI identify Ponzi schemes. He had apparently, genuinely, changed. And then he did it again. In 2011, Barry Minkow pleaded guilty to a new fraud, this time, manipulating the stock price of a home building company through false statements he made as a fraud investigator. He was sentenced to 5 more years. He was released. And in 2014, he was charged again, this time for defrauding his own church congregation out of $3 million. The judge who sentenced him the third time was not sympathetic. She gave him 5 more years and told him, "I don't think you're a con man. I think you have a compulsion." The Barry Minkow story is one of the most studied cases in the history of corporate fraud. Every major business school in America uses it as a case study, not primarily as a story about a bad person doing bad things, but as a story about how systems fail. ZZZZ Best passed multiple independent audits by world-class accounting firms. It was backed by major Wall Street banks. It was covered positively by the financial press. And it was essentially a 20-year-old with fake documents and a lot of confidence. This should terrify anyone who trusts institutional validation. Because what Minkow understood instinctively, without ever studying it, is that most due diligence is theater. The auditors aren't checking whether the job sites are real. They're checking whether the paperwork confirming the job sites looks like paperwork that confirms real job sites. The appearance of legitimacy. The impression of substance. It is exactly what Victor Lustig understood in Paris in 1925. It is what Elizabeth Holmes understood when she raised $700 million for Theranos. It is what the founders of Fire Festival understood. The con is always the same. Build confidence. Create paperwork. Let human psychology do the rest. And the defense, the only real defense, is to ask not does this look real, but what would I need to verify to know this is real? Those are very different questions. Subscribe. New case every Friday. I'll see you then.